You check your bank account, $2,143.67. You take a screenshot. You finally did it. You built your emergency fund, $2,000. Just like every personal finance guru on the internet told you to. And then, your car makes that weird grinding noise. Your rent goes up. Your insurance deductible hits. And suddenly that safe $2,000 feels less like a safety net and more like a napkin in a hurricane. If that scenario made you uncomfortable, good. Because today we're going to talk about why the $2,000 emergency fund rule is outdated and honestly kind of dangerous in 2026. My name is Zach, and I spend way too much time thinking about how inflation, risk, and human psychology quietly destroy your financial plan. If you're someone who feels like you're doing everything right, saving money, following the rules, trying to be responsible, but still feel one bad week away for financial chaos, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because look, the $2,000 emergency fund advice isn't evil. It's just incomplete. And in 2026, incomplete advice is expensive. The origin of the $2,000 rule. Here's the thing. The $1,000 to $2,000 starter emergency fund became popular because it was simple. It was achievable. It helped people stop living paycheck to paycheck. Psychologically, it works. Behaviorally, it gets momentum going. But financially, it hasn't kept up with reality. The 2026 cost reality check. Let's zoom out for a second. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, cumulative inflation since 2020 is roughly 20 to 25%, depending on the category. Essentials like auto insurance, rent, groceries, and medical costs have increased even more in many cities. AAA reports the average cost of a major car repair now ranges between $500 and $2,000. And that's just one issue. The average health insurance deductible for an individual and employer-sponsored plans? Around $1,700 to $2,500. The average monthly rent in the U.S.? Roughly $1,700. So let's do basic math. Car repair, $1,500. Rent, $1,700. Deductible, $2,000. That's $5,200. And we haven't even talked about job loss yet. This is where it gets really interesting. The original $2,000 rule was never meant to cover catastrophe. It was meant to cover inconvenience. But in 2026, inconvenience costs more than $2,000. The math most people don't do. Here's what most people don't realize. Emergencies rarely happen one at a time. They stack. You don't lose your job in a vacuum. It happens during inflation, during a market downturn, when credit card rates are 24% plus. Let's say your monthly expenses are $3,500. That includes $1,700 rent, $500 groceries, $400 car payment, $250 insurance, $300 utilities, $350 miscellaneous. Now imagine you lose your job. The average unemployment duration in recent years has hovered around 8 to 12 weeks. Sometimes longer depending on industry. 3 months of expenses? $3,500 times 3 equals $10,500. Now compare that to your $2,000 emergency fund. That covers about 17 days. 17. That's not security. That's a head start on panic. Why the $2,000 advice persists. Now you might be thinking, Zach, okay, but something is better than nothing. You're right. But here's the psychological trap. When you hit $2,000, your brain relaxes. You feel safe. And when humans feel safe, we stop optimizing. Behavioral finance research shows that once we reach a labeled goal, motivation drops sharply. It's called goal completion bias. Your brain checks the box. Emergency fund? Done. Except it's not done. It's just started. The false sense of security effect. Look, money is math, but financial stress is psychological. When people believe they're protected, they take slightly more risk. They spend a little looser. They invest more aggressively. They delay insurance adjustments. That $2,000 creates what I call financial placebo confidence. It feels protective, but under stress, it dissolves instantly. Let's compare it to insurance. Imagine buying health insurance with a $2,000 annual maximum payout. You'd never do that. Yet that's essentially what you're doing with your life buffer. Your emergency fund is self-insurance. And in 2026, $2,000 is underinsured. The real emergency fund formula. So what should it be? Here's a more realistic framework. Step 1. Calculate your bare bones monthly survival number. Not lifestyle, survival. Cut streaming, cut dining out, strip it down. Let's say that's $2,800 per month. Step 2. Multiply by 3 to 6 months. 3 months equals $8,400. 6 months equals $16,800. Now that feels different, right? That feels like stability. But Zach, I can't save $15,000. I know, that number feels massive. But here's where it gets really interesting. You don't need it tomorrow. You need a plan. The $2,000 myth hurts people because it implies you're finished. A better structure looks like this. Phase 1, $2,000 starter fund. Phase 2, 1 month expenses. Phase 3, 3 months expenses. Phase 4, 6 months expenses. See the difference? We turn it into levels. Humans love levels. The inflation multiplier problem. Another thing nobody talks about. Inflation compounds risk. If your expenses rise 5% annually, your emergency fund must grow too. If you needed $9,000 in 2022, you might need $10,000 plus now. But most people park their $2,000 in savings and never adjust it. That means every year it protects less. Credit cards are not emergency funds. Now you might be thinking, I'll just use my credit card if something happens. Look, average credit card interest rates are above 20%. Some are pushing 25 to 30%. Let's say you charge $5,000 for an emergency at 24% APR and only make minimum payments. You could easily pay $1,000 to $2,000 in interest. That emergency just doubled. Debt turns emergencies into long-term financial scars. The job market risk factor. In 2026, layoffs are faster. Automation is faster. Hiring cycles are longer. According to labor data trends, white-collar unemployment spikes can last months before recovery stabilizes. Translation? 3 months might not be enough for certain industries. Your emergency fund should reflect your job volatility. Freelancer? 6+ months. Commission-based income? 6 months. Government job? Maybe 3 months is reasonable. Risk-adjusted savings. Nobody talks about that. The lifestyle creep illusion. Here's what most people don't realize. As your income grows, your emergency risk grows too. If you upgrade apartments, cars, and subscriptions, your monthly burn increases. But most people never resize their emergency fund. You can't run a $5,000 a month life with a $2,000 cushion. That's mathematically unstable. The psychological comfort of bigger buffers. This is where psychology flips in your favor. Once you hit 3 to 6 months of expenses, something changes. You negotiate better. You tolerate less nonsense at work. You make smarter investment decisions. You don't panic sell during market dips because you're not desperate. Liquidity equals leverage, and leverage equals power. A quick story. I once talked to someone who had exactly $2,300 saved. Felt great about it. Then their transmission failed. $3,800 repair. They used the $2,300. Put $1,500 on a credit card. 3 months later, medical bill. Another $900 on credit. 1 year later, they were carrying $6,000 in revolving debt at 22% interest. All because the original buffer was too thin. Small cushion, big consequences. So what should you do this week? Let's get practical. 1. Calculate your survival number tonight. 2. Set your level 2 target. 1 month expenses. 3. Automate weekly transfers, even $50 to $100. 4. Park it in a high-yield savings account, 4 to 5% APY range, depending on market conditions. 5. Increase contributions with every raise. Treat your emergency fund like a bill, not an afterthought. The $2,000 emergency fund myth isn't really about math. It's about outdated benchmarks. Financial advice that worked in 2015 doesn't automatically work in 2026. Cost changed. Interest rates changed. Volatility changed. Your strategy has to evolve too. Look, the goal isn't to hoard cash forever. The goal is to build a shock absorber strong enough that life doesn't knock you off the road. $2,000 is a start, but it's not stability. Stability is when a problem shows up and you don't lose sleep. You don't reach for death. You don't panic. You just handle it. That's financial maturity. If this video changed how you think about emergency funds, share it with someone who thinks $2,000 is done. Comment below. How many months of expenses do you currently have saved? And if you want more breakdowns like this, where we challenge common money advice and actually run the numbers, hit subscribe. Because in 2026, financial survival isn't about following old rules. It's about understanding risk and building real protection against it.